Before I started this, I asked myself several times, am I really qualified to be talking about Metal Gear, especially during such a delicate time of its lifespan, the end. The series has had a great run for almost 30 years and has run the gambit from its humble 8-bit beginnings on the MSX to this much anticipated final chapter, whose budget is said to have been upwards of $80 million. It's a series that's been near and dear to me for quite some time, and even the ones that I found to be less satisfying still have elements that I enjoy about them, characters I like, or scenes that I fondly remember. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater remains up there as one of my favorite games of all time, and it's likely I'll use it as a basis for comparing this game to. As in 100% likely because the script has already been written, the voiceover has been recorded. Does The Phantom Pain put a giant exclamation point on Hideo Kojima's long career with Konami? Or does it miss the mark and lose sight of everything that made the series great and memorable to begin with? The answer, as with anything Metal Gear related, is a complicated one. Mission 1. Gimme a SITREP. Hold the spoilers. Given the nature of the series with its large emphasis on story, I've decided to structure this review a little bit differently so as to get the technical side of things out of the way first, without ruining the game's plot. So if you want to know whether the game's worth getting and don't want spoilers, just watch until this section is done. Otherwise, do stick around for the story sections too because, well, there's a lot to say. Picking up directly after Ground Zeroes, The Phantom Pain is thankfully a lot deeper in its mechanics than its bare-bones predecessor, and a lot better of a value proposition too. Although I suppose it'd be fair to say, yeah, I fucking hope so. The Fox engine that was created for this game is very impressive, running at a smooth 60 frames per second even on the PS4 and Xbox One versions, and easily achieving that on most gaming PCs. With the exception of a few minor frame drops, there's nothing really to complain about as far as optimization goes. The graphics, while not the best I've ever seen, are impressive given the game's scope, and what's even more impressive is that every scene in this game is rendered in-engine. The controls are great here, and our protagonist Snake moves quickly and easily as a result. Aiming your weapons, switching to a sneaking stance, or diving to avoid a grenade, it's all very responsive. There are a few minor issues, such as snapping into cover against a wall feeling dodgy, but overall it feels great to play. I'm not too fond of the game's decision to switch from its staple health bar to a HUD-less regenerating health system. I know this has been business as usual for AAA games for some time, but it kinda takes a bit of the game's identity away, and you can find yourself in situations where you're killed before you even realize what's happening. The Phantom Pain also makes a nod to Snake Eater's first aid system by occasionally having Snake get a severe wound, which you'll have to treat on the battlefield. What that amounts to is finding cover and tapping E to watch him spray some magic medicine on himself. I'm not sure why this system is even here. It's much more of an inconvenience than a feature. The series has always been unique in that despite being a military espionage-themed story, it actively encourages you to not kill your enemies. Except for the first two, I guess. This has always encouraged a stealthy, non-violent approach where you learn about guard movement, how they behave, what they can and can't see or hear, and so on. This carries over into the Phantom Pain, and you're given a number of weapons and tools that fall under two basic categories: lethal and non-lethal. While most weapons fall under some general archetypes, like pistols or sniper rifles, there's a wide variety of unlockable variations, upgrades, and interchangeable parts that make your arsenal very diverse. You also have a number of grenades, mines, and other unique tools at your disposal, the most interesting of which is Snake's bionic arm. The arm can be upgraded with a sonar wave, passives such as increased movement speed, it can send out electric currents, and it also functions as this game's equivalent to the Nikita rockets, an extremely useful Mazinger Z-style rocket punch. Each mission you go on gives you a score, rank, and codename based on your actions, with no kills or detections significantly increasing said score. You're also rewarded for using tactical takedowns such as holding up enemy troops and forcing them to stand down, without you taking a single shot, and in turn a single life. With the abundance of deadly weapons at your disposal, it's tempting to forgo stealth and pacifism in favor of rampant murder, and that method does tend to be a lot easier. Plus, it's kind of fun. Going the lethal route is a bit less rewarding though. both to your own ego and to your progress in-game. You'll find that you need to recruit soldiers to your new private army, the Diamond Dogs, in order to unlock new weapons, upgrades, camouflage, tools. Pretty much everything in the game hinges on rallying people to your cause.
Pun intended.
You'll attain more workers by getting a reputation based on successful missions, rescuing prisoners, successfully invading other players' bases, or by doing time-gated RNG-laden quests, straight out of the garrison in Warlords of Lost subscriptions. Of course, all of that pales in comparison to the most direct method of all. The Fulton recovery device makes a return from Peace Walker, and it'll become your best friend in the entire game, bar none. Not only is it essential for forcibly recruiting enemy soldiers to the Diamond Dogs, but it's also a very effective means of removing foes from the field without the risk of them being discovered by another patrol, or without killing them outright. This does render the notion of hiding unconscious or dead bodies pretty useless though, as there's no real benefit to doing this over simply using a Fulton to pull them away. Even if you don't plan on using the new recruits, if their stats are too low to be useful, you can just fire them later and free up a spot for a better person. I'm a good boss. You'll be able to upgrade the Fulton to steal anti-air guns, wild animals, enemy vehicles, material containers, and children. Oh, I'll get to that later, believe you me. The Fulton actually is one of my favorite aspects of the Phantom Pain. It really sets the game apart from the crowd, even if it is somewhat overpowered. Hearing the Doppler effect as a guard or animal rockets upwards into the sky is also a nice bit of comic relief to all the dark, serious stuff going on in the story. I also feel that its very large and tangible effect on the gameplay makes the Fulton far less desperate than the oh-so-funny and random chicken mask to prove the game still has a sense of humor about it. I guess I should talk about the chicken mask, huh? The chicken mask turns the game to easy mode. Ha ha ha. It's hilarious and random, but you don't want to be a chicken, do you? That's the joke. You use it because the game is too hard and scares you. Thus, chicken. The game makes fun of you for cheating, being cheap. You have a number of AI-controlled buddies that you can bring along for each mission, such as D-Horse, D-Dog, D-Walker, and D-Quiet. D-Horse acts as fast transportation, D-Dog acts as an automatic target marker, a distraction, and can be upgraded to use a knife with his mouth. D-Walker can be customized to suit pretty much any situation. And last but certainly not least, Quiet is an overpowered sniper who can take out entire bases pretty much by herself. The problem with the buddies is that some of them are clearly more useful than others, and by that I mean D-Horse is pretty outclassed by everybody else. He even has far less in the way of upgrades than the other buddies, and the difference between the horse armor you get is negligible at best. You can switch your buddies out during a mission, and I assume they want you to use D-Horse to get to your destination, then switch him out for one of the better ones, but the amount of time spent waiting for the supply drop, along with the GMP cost, is a bit too inconvenient to even bother. The game has a lot of depth, and a lot of items have uses that aren't readily apparent. The water pistol, seemingly a useless joke weapon, can be used as a quiet way of destroying communications devices, and a non-violent way of stunning and holding enemies up. You can use a spare magazine and throw it in an enemy's face to knock them out, complete with a comical sound effect. Decoys can act as another means of knocking soldiers unconscious, without having to waste precious tranquilizer ammo. It even works on heavily armored troops. The cardboard box is iconic to the series, and makes its return here. You can attach posters to it, walk around with it, and make fools of the guards. The box is necessary to use this game's version of fast travel too, which, to be honest, is not very convenient or well explained in game. I didn't even know it was there until about 12 missions in. Until then, I was actually calling the helicopter in and redeploying every time. Considering there are 157 side ops in addition to the 50 missions, this can add up to a massive amount of time and GMP wasted.
Mr. Joy's #1 pro tip for the Phantom Pain.
When you're not on a main story mission and want to head back to the chopper, just run until you trigger an autosave, then hit escape. Choose Return to ACC, and you'll not only skip the deployment cost, but you'll be put back to the chopper instantly. This can potentially save you hours of time. This brings me to one of the biggest flaws this game has, the downtime. This can be seen in how much time you spend waiting for the helicopter to drop you off, waiting for the helicopter to come pick you up, waiting for your research projects to finish, waiting for resources to be refined, waiting for a new supply drop to arrive, waiting for combat deployment missions to finish, running through empty areas of no consequence and waiting to get to your destination, waiting for your weapon or buddy to be swapped out via supply drop, or waiting for the story to get good. Oh god, did I just say that out loud? It's blatant and unnecessary padding that makes you cynically question why things had to be extended like this. And if we're being honest with ourselves, we can make an educated guess, can't we? It feels more insulting considering how short and to the point the rest of the games were, even with the vast amounts of cutscenes. People have often complained about the series having too many of these scenes, as they're segments where you're not controlling the game. That's a valid criticism. It's in a lot of these cutscenes, however, where some of the most iconic and spectacular scenes in the series occur, and it's part of Metal Gear's identity as a whole. Not only do they give context to the action that you are in control of, but they can also serve to strengthen the characters and let you get to know them better. People still remember when Otacon was first introduced, how he wet himself in fear, and how he comments on how Solid Snake and Grey Fox are
like one of my Japanese animes.
Even if you haven't played the game, chances are you know about it through osmosis. These are the kind of things that make their mark on pop culture, and it just makes me scratch my head that reviewers are praising the Phantom Pain for having less scenes like this. In return, we got all this waiting instead. It makes me have to ask those praising this new direction, would you rather watch 5 hours of this? Or 5 hours of this? Would you rather get one of your weapons like this? Or like this?
Incredible.
Would you rather listen to a pre-recorded cassette tape on why we shouldn't like the bad guy? Or would you rather see them actually doing something like this?
And you're looking for a record of where all that money is hidden, right?
Wow, I guess those cutscenes were just a waste of time and have no place in a game. Now how many hours are left until my next base upgrade is done? That said, there's a wealth of things to do, weapons to unlock, side ops to complete, and secrets to discover. You'll have a lot of fun discovering your own playstyle, or going out of your comfort zone and just experimenting. Now that I can afford D-Walker, I'm having a hell of a time with it. You will likely find the game to be repetitive after a certain point, as you'll undoubtedly find out the most efficient way to go about missions. In my case, making liberal use of the decoys and going in non-lethal. Unless I scanned a soldier, saw he had low stats, and deemed him unfit to live because he was worthless human trash. Oh man, this game really does turn you into a villain, doesn't it? The main story will take you a fair bit of time to get through, and while I may have more than a few issues with the story and characters, it's not terrible by any stretch. You'll probably want to play Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater first though. I say this because it'll give you a better understanding of the story, the characters, you'll have perspective as to what the Phantom Pain does right and wrong, and most importantly, because I'm gonna spoil the story rotten.